When it comes to us Zelda fans, you already know it's never too early to start thinking about the next Zelda. What is good, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy HMK once again. And like I said earlier, it's never too early to start thinking about the next Legend of Zelda game, because Nintendo doesn't want to make DLC for Tears of the Kingdom, which I felt would have benefited the game a lot more so than Breath of the Wild. Not to say that Tears of the Kingdom is bad or it needs to be better. I love Tears of the Kingdom and I think it's one of my favorite Legend of Zelda games. It's just that I want more, and I feel the game would really benefit considering Link's repertoire of abilities such as Fuse, Ascent, Rewind would benefit in a roguelike or Trial of the Sword type situation. Like, it doesn't even have to be story related, it just gives me hard mode or anything, or call it a day. But when it comes to the next Zelda game after the heels of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which I felt were stellar installments with their take on the open air adventure, we need to think about the next evolution of the Legend of Zelda, because the Legend of Zelda never stops moving. It constantly evolves while retaining the elements that make it Zelda, which is exploration, puzzles, and of course combat. And I would like a Zelda game to deal more in a specific part of that trinity, specifically combat. Can you imagine a Legend of Zelda game that takes on the take of God of War? And I mean God of War and God of War Ragnarok, so God of War 4. I think that would be a really interesting take on the Legend of Zelda without having us limited to not being able to explore the way that we did in previous Zelda games such as Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. Even Wind Waker. You know, Wind Waker was an incredible world to explore, but a lot of people don't like it because of the water. I would like the next Legend of Zelda game to deal with a certain aspect of exploration while dealing with a more fleshed out combat initiative. Something that was explored ever so much in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess when it came to parrying and the hidden abilities. While The Legend of Zelda has definitely dabbled in RPG elements, it in itself is not an RPG game. The closest that we've ever gotten to that was Zelda 2. The Legend of Zelda is an action-adventure game that deals with exploration, dungeons, puzzles, all that good jazz. But if we were to incorporate a more robust pseudo level up system within The Legend of Zelda, I feel that would really benefit the game in terms of combat, exploration, and finding new things to discover in terms of making Link stronger. Instead of finding great fairies, or finding hero crests, or learning a hidden ability in order to upgrade your spin attack, maybe find a way to learn different types of spin attacks and level up those spin attacks in order to use against enemies in various different ways, which will give that air of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in terms of how to approach a certain problem your way. Taking elements, abilities, and items throughout the series of The Legend of Zelda and allowing them to be upgraded in certain ways would really retain the spirit of The Legend of Zelda as a whole, and of course incorporating flavors from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in terms of how to approach a certain problem, especially if you want to consider build paths that you can discover throughout the game. They dabbled a little bit with this with Skyward Sword. So imagine if you want to build your bow or a specific arrow in a certain direction, where you could have a fire arrow being upgraded into a magma arrow or a cluster bomb arrow. Those are two separate paths off the fire arrow. And of course, you're going to have recipes off rip and recipes that you can learn by exploring the world. This can be applied to abilities like the spin attack, applied to items like bows and arrows, can be applied to other things, such as choosing the path of where you want to go in your adventure when it comes to branch paths and maybe multiple endings, but not so much multiple endings in terms of multiple outcomes, but multiple ways to get to the specific ending of the end of the game. While the outcome will be pretty consistent, the way you get there will be told in a different story by the time you get there. Kind of like Fire Emblem. And this will take flavors from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and a lot of people don't talk about it enough, A Link Between Worlds. So for those that want a more comprehensive story, a more straightforward lore path when it comes to a new Zelda game, how you discover, build, and select your paths for your weapons, abilities, and items can help dictate that story. And once you get your sword, or your arrow and you decide to imbue it with fire energy or increase the fire energy of your arrow in a direction of a more potent, straightforward fire arrow instead of an exploding cluster bomb arrow, you'll have to talk to and get to know a certain smith from a certain region, maybe a Goron. And the relationship you build with that specific character will allow you to build a path to your first dungeon. A dungeon that can be opened and cleared because of that specific item or ability you decide to learn, or the way you decide to tackle the problems of that area and decide to tackle enemies of that nature. And once you beat that dungeon, it'll be able to open up a specific chunk relating to the end goal of that specific character's story and arc that will help set up the next arc, or a branched arc if you want to go back and say, hey, maybe if I should help the water area and learn how to make a crystal arrow that allows rainfall. But what you did already can either help expedite that specific story or have it play out in a different way. Hey, do you know this person? I met them already. Okay, hey Link, let me give you this thing that upgrades your sword in a specific way because you did that quest already, and maybe this will help you if you decide to take that path back up. Now, I know it seems a bit complicated at first, but honestly, for what Nintendo has done before, they can tackle something like this with, I wouldn't say relative ease because I'm not a video game developer, but I feel they can get the job done. Now, of course, with possibilities at hand in opening up possibilities, we're gonna have to deal with the idea of closing certain paths, which begs the question on how big an adventure like this can be and the replay value in having a Zelda game play out like this. And of course, save scumming, multiple files, hey, don't knock it. I'm part of the future force. So by the time you beat the game, you might be given a title for your specific journey at the end of the game, which I feel will be really cool, like Link, the hero of fire, or Link, the trailblazer of fire, or Link, the savior of water, or Link, savior of the rains, or Link, sovereign of the forest, something like that. And if you decide to combine certain paths that are compatible, then you have Link, the tragedy of stone and rain, or I don't know. You guys get what I'm trying to say? Either way, when it comes to the next Zelda game, I wouldn't want them to go backwards so much that it takes everything that they've established in terms of creating magic with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in the open air adventure, but also applying that possibility of choice within video game aspects that we've seen beforehand with The Legend of Zelda, but evolving them into something grand and new. And of course, with all of that, putting it together with the Nintendo magic that we've known so well throughout all of the Zelda games. All in all, for the next Zelda game, something I would really like is where you craft your own adventure, but the adventure is also crafted with you, if that makes any sense. So let me know what you think about that idea in the comment section below, and of course, I'll have plenty other videos when it comes to the past and the future of The Legend of Zelda. So until the next video, don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. This has been your boy HMK, and I'll check you guys later.